Hi, I'm Phil Lamar, voice of Green Lantern in Justice League, and you're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Hi, this is John Barber. You are listening to The Pull Bag.
You've just jumped inside The Pull Bag. Join TFG1 Mike and the rest of the comic crew here at the GCRN as they make their great escape into comics. From DC, Marvel, and Image to IDW, Boom Studios, and Zenescope, we have everything right here. We cover things like Transformers, He-Man, superheroes, TMNT, and Radiant Black. Yeah, we have all that and so much more. It's all inside the Pull Bag here on the Geekcast Radio Network. So, without further ado, it's time to talk about the comics we're reading right now, here inside the Pull Bag.
Hello and welcome to the Pull Bag. This is episode 541. I'm, of course, TFG1 Mike, and ladies and gentlemen, it's 2024, and I had plans to go crazy with this show this year and record about 160 episodes, and I don't think that's going to happen. Because in a couple of weeks, I'm probably going to have to go in for a second brain surgery. Yay! More details on that at some other time, at least after I get more information on it. I'm sort of okay, but not really. Joining me is 1/3 quarter, whatever fraction you want to call him, from the Long Box Crusade and other things that he does. It is Mr. Delvin Williams. Hello, Delvin. How are you?
It's weird. I'm not used to being called Mr. Anything, but I'm good, Mike. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Yes, this has been a long time coming, folks. I watch a lot of his not Facebook. How the hell you do those stories and stuff when he's out running and jogging and stuff? I'm like, oh, okay. And I've listened to a few episodes of the Long Box Crusade. Great show as always. But yeah, always trying to get the origins of any and all comic fans that I can. 30 questions, all about comic books. And someone recently told me that usually our first question that I ask anyone is a dumb one, because why would I have somebody on the show if they didn't do this? But some people start later than others. So did you grow up reading comics, and at what age do you first remember reading or noticing comics?
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I don't think that's a dumb question at all, because you never know when, like, anybody has started their journey. Like, yeah. So I mean, that's, and comic books in the right way should be all inclusive. So, yeah, like, I mean, so whether or not you started when you were 4 or 40, it doesn't matter. You know, we are glad to have you along for the ride. Just wanted to mention that.
Absolutely.
But that said, I started collecting comic books when I was 9, and I am a lot older than 9 now. So, yeah, it's been a minute. I am not new to the game of comic books.
Yeah, 11 years for me. I was never, and people have heard me, I'm going to try to tell this story slightly differently. It's the same story, but I'm just wording it differently. I was always a cartoon kid in the 80s, because I was born in 1980, so I wasn't really a comics kid. I tried in the 90s, but I was more, and 11 years or so ago, Steve Megatron was like, yeah, New 52 Batman 13, look at the cover. I'm like, oh, Joker with his face. Okay, all right. And ever since that, for 11 years now almost, we've 540 episodes in 11 years.
That's a lot of episodes, dude.
I'm a machine. But yeah, man, comics it's great. It's, you know, you've got so many different things for so many different people, and you don't have to stick to one thing or the other thing and try out a whole bunch of stuff. It's like an early bird special buffet.
I tell people all the time that there's a comic book for everybody. And I don't just say that condescendingly. I mean it. Like, there are so many different types of comic books out there, either mainstream or creator owned. There is something that you're into that you can find in comic book form. That is just simply a fact.
Yeah. Absolutely. And comic books have the distinction of being able to tell a story over a long period of time. You don't have to fit in a comic story within 2.5 to 7.5 hours, depending on if you're Zack Snyder or somebody else that likes doing 7.5 hour films. Yeah. But usually with movies or cartoons or television shows, you have a finite 30 minutes, an hour, 2.5, like I said, hours, whatever it is. Comic books, depending on how well they sell and how well they do and all that, you can tell multiple stories over multiple arcs, and there have been plenty of comics in the history of comics that have gone 1,000+ issues. So, it's infinite.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Now, I remember years ago when I was in the Air Force, just starting out, like I'd bring comic books on the cruise ship that I was a part of, and I would read them. And one of my bosses asked me to read it. It was Ultimate Spider-Man. Okay. Like it had just really come out. And the thing that annoyed him the most about it was that he couldn't keep reading it. And so I wasn't really trying to get my boss hip to comic books or anything, but I guess what I probably should have done is recommend to him a trade paperback or something. Yep. So that he could have gotten all of the story. But again, it was brand new at the time. So who knew it was going to take off or anything? But yeah, that was his annoyance with it. But most people kind of like that. It's little bite-sized pieces that you can just, consume and just go forth with.
Yep, absolutely. As a kid, was there a parent, a friend, some sort of adult that just said, "Here, kid, read this comic. Go away. You bother me"?
No, but close. When my comic book origin story started, when again at 9, I had in my head it was about $6 in my pocket, and I grew up in the 80s too. I'm a little bit older than you are, and so $6, I may as well have been a millionaire. And I wanted to go and buy a new Transformer toy because the small ones, the Bumblebee type. Toys are relatively cheap. Yep. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to do this. Mom, please take me to the mall. And my mom said, okay, I'll take you to the mall, if I get a chance. Well, I'm sure she was doing something very important and very grown up, but she was not able to take me to go get a toy. And so I was a kid, bugged the hell out of her and bugged her. So she wound up driving me to the local drugstore. And I remember she said, well, you better find something in here and leave me alone. And I knew that there weren't any toys in that drugstore. And so but I also knew that I better leave my mom alone lest I catch a backhand or something. And so I went walking down the aisles and lo and behold, there was a comic book rack. And lo and behold, on that comic book rack was an episode of Transformers. It was Transformers 24, by the way. And that was the one where Optimus Prime died.
Do not grieve. Soon, I shall be one with the Matrix.
So, I say all this to say that, my mom was doing a go away, you bother me type thing, but it was more so I could just leave her alone, and she wound up inadvertently creating a monster.
There you go. When you were a kid, which characters were your favorites?
So, comic book characters, if I started with Transformers. Mm-hmm. And so in Transformers 24, I don't know if you remember or not, Optimus Prime died. Mm-hmm. He was blown to smithereens. And so what really created the monster was I spent the next couple of months no, they're kidding, right? Surely he's coming back. Surely he's coming back. And he didn't. But Optimus Prime was one of my guys, and I appreciated the heroism of Blaster as well during that run leading back up to Optimus. And I also appreciated the conflict that Fortress Maximus had going on. Now, mainstream comic wise, I wish I could remember why. It was probably looking at a house ad or something like that, but I really like Spider-Man. And so Spider-Man was my first mainstream Marvel comic that I collected, the Amazing Spider-Man. So like Spidey now and forever will be my guy. He's my number one dude.
Mm. What did you think of Superior when they switched it up and made Doc Ock Spidey a decade ago or so?
It was a fantastic idea. Like I don't know what fever dream Dan Slott had to come up with that, but it was like, and he snuck it in out of left field too. Mm-hmm. Like they introduced this whole like woe is me storyline. I'm Doc Ock. I've been punched in the head way too many times by freaking like overpowered freaks, and I'm about to have my last call. And basically asked Peter, or Spider-Man is like, dude, I'm about to die. Like, tell me who you are. And Pete's like, okay, fine. And pull off the mask, and then boom! That's when they pulled the switch, and it was like, oh, what? What is going on? Oh, it was great. It was such a great storyline.
Yeah, I love that run. That's how one of the things the podcast started on was we started on New 52 between Batman, Nightwing, Batgirl, and we started on Superior Spider-Man because back in 2013 when we were starting the show, 698 to 700 came out, so you got 700 issues of ASM, and in 2013 I was tired, like I've read or I've seen or whatever every version of every origin of Peter Parker there has ever been in the X number of whatever years. I'm like, I don't want to read the same old Peter. I want to read something different. And then Superior comes along, and I'm like, okay, you got my attention. Like, holy crap.
Yeah, it was so well done. And at the end of the day, of course, like Dan Slott can say, I mean, it was no pun intended, an ultimate Spider-Man story. It really was, because by the time that like Peter found his way back, and like Green Goblin had been sort of in and out of the book. I think Green Goblin figured out it was Doc Ock in the body and not Peter. Not Peter. But like at some point, like Doc Ock Spidey was doing something, and then like Peter Parker like replied or whatever. No, I'm reversing it. Like at that point, Peter Parker got his body back, and Peter Parker made a quip or something to Green Goblin, and Green Goblin just looks at him, just goes, "You." Yeah, you. Like I know exactly who makes these freaking quips and insults, and it is not Otto Octavius.
No.
Yeah, Dan Slott, that was an absolute winner of a storyline. Absolute winner.
Absolutely. Yeah, the difference between Peter and Otto is Peter will do the quips, as we all know. We've known since 1962. Peter is a quippy teenager. Otto is punch first, say things later.
Right. Like, I mean, like that number he pulled on Black Cat was just just ran and socked her in the mouth. Like, oh my God. So yeah, you're right. Like they were just like it. And so Otto actually did, because, he was literally in Peter Parker's body and brain. He sort of tried to live up to the world of Peter Parker, sort of, but like no one can do it quite like Peter can, and that's what makes him so special.
Absolutely. The age-old question, the thing comic fans fight over the most, DC or Marvel?
Man, ultimately I'm team comic book.
That's a cop-out.
It's not, though. Like, man, like, because I get asked this question when it comes to the movie universe a lot. They're like, team Marvel or team DC. And I'm like, why does it have to be team anything? Mm-hmm. But now how I will answer the question is by saying I have more Marvel comic books in my collection than anything. Mm-hmm. I have thousands of DC comic books, but I have more thousands of Marvel comic books. And I think that Marvel, maybe it's just that, Mighty Marvel way or Merry Marvel way or whatever you want to call it. Maybe it's because Spider-Man is my number one dude and that branched me off into a lot of other things. But if I had to choose, it would be Marvel because I do just appreciate their content a little bit better. But that said, the DC universe is obviously rich in, it should be obvious to anyone, rich in history. And I know these questions are coming up, but like to the degree that I wish that DC had never done any retcon whatsoever. I wish they would have stayed true to what they were, because that heritage really means more than revamping the book back to issue 1 every other month or every time that like a creator switches out. Like that continuity is what looms the largest to me with DC.
So since you said that, I'll put this here because I don't know where else we're going to fit it in. But if they did not do the New 52 and we did not get Kyle Higgins' Red Nightwing, this comic book podcast would not exist.
Yeah,
because
I heard about your love for Kyle Higgins' Nightwing run, which I didn't read any of it. So
wow.
Yeah, like it just so happens when New 52 kicked off, I was deployed overseas. So I was getting comic books sent to me, great, thankfully, but I didn't add any to my pull list or anything at the time. So I missed out on that run.
Well, thank you for your service, number one. And number two, as much as I like the blue costume, red superior, blue inferior.
What? Oh my God, no,
yeah.
You are on the good stuff, sir. Ain't no way.
All right. What other publishers do you enjoy reading?
I am mainly a mainstream guy, mainly Marvel and DC. That said, I have collected Image comic books. I was with Image from the start where, oh my God, every issue is going to be a collector's item. Every issue is going to be worth $1 million someday. So yes, I absolutely will, get 3 issues of Spawn and whatnot. But I've got plenty of Image, decent amount of IDW, and I have collected, I'd say, a semi-decent amount of the independent books, too. Like, you start, like, doing podcasts and stuff like that, and what happens, you meet friends and stuff that do podcasts, or they're using podcasts as a vehicle to sell their wares one way or the other. So, like, and so you wind up like, okay, I'll pick this book up or I'll pick that book up. But it usually is, I like doing that though. I like seeing that other people have a love and affectation for comic books so much so that they want to create their own stuff. That's really dope.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where, for me, going back to number 4, it's never been about company loyalty for me. It's been about character loyalty. What character? So if Marvel has characters I love Marvel. If DC has characters I love DC. Same thing with the other publishers. If IDW or Skybound or Image or any of those people have stories with characters that I enjoy, that's what I gravitate towards. And I try my best not to... I don't believe in and I don't do the whole, because it's just consuming energy that I could do with this whole idea of hate doing things. Like, I'm going to hate watch this, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to read this. I'm like, don't do that. Don't waste your time doing that. Focus on what you love. And so, like, if people recommend something to me, I'll look into it. If it's something that I think I might be interested in, I'll try it out. I may not always stick with it, but when I recommend stuff to people, it's because I've enjoyed it and I think they would enjoy it. Like, I'm not going to tell you to read whatever thing that everyone absolutely hates or what. It's just not. No.
I would not hesitate to say that there's too many people on this planet right now that like seem to get off on unifying people in what they hate. And it's like, nah, I'm good on that. No. Thanks.
I mean, it's perfectly fine to hate certain things, but don't do it just because everybody else is doing it, or just because it's a thing to do. If you love a movie franchise, or if you love a artist that has this album or that album, or comics or what, do it because you enjoy it. Don't do it because you feel like you need to be like everybody else.
Yeah. I would much rather somebody I saw some a reel or something recently, and it was about this guy who loved the library. I think he was a librarian, and he was just talking about all the awesome things that you could find inside of a library. And I saw it under somebody retweeting it and talking about how weird this dude was. And I'm like, I think this dude's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
He's sitting there talking about a positive thing and how it can help people and how it excites him to help people. That is awesome. Like I need 1 million more people like that rather than somebody, I'm going to tell you why this thing sucks.
Yeah. Great. Because everybody tells you why this thing sucks.
Right.
Like that's the thing. And look, I can be a negative person just like anybody else can, and I can dislike things about I can grade harshly if I need to on anything, movies, comics, cartoons, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, you take the original US 98 episodes of the Transformers cartoon. Out of those 98 episodes, more than half of them probably are really, really bad. And I know they are because I've seen them all multiple times. There's a handful of episodes in that entire series that are bad. However, that does not take away me enjoying the episodes that I absolutely enjoy and can rewatch at any point in time.
Right.
Yeah. Print or digital? Which one? Both, either or, and why or why not?
I have not given in a digital yet. It's smart. It absolutely is a thing that had to be done. You have to. If you're in the comic book realm, you have to take advantage of that. That said, I wish I could remember the exact quote that Stan Lee made. It was something to the effect of he sees digital comic books much like watching pornography on the internet. It's it's kind of fun. It's but you'd rather have the real thing in your hand.
And I agree with that sentiment for the art. For enjoying the art of the comic book.
Yeah.
The audience for the past 11 years know this, you may or may not know this, I was born legally blind. And even with correction, I still have really bad eyesight at times. So for me, and I've told this part of the story plenty of times before, folks, so if you're tired of hearing my Punisher thing, fast forward a couple of minutes. I was reading Welcome Back, Frank, the compendium, the omnibus version of it, and I fell asleep in my chair reading Welcome Back, Frank. Not because the book was boring, but because the book was so goddamn heavy, it fell out of my hand and woke me up. The next day at the time, I went on to Comixology, and I have not looked back for reading the stories. Do I still enjoy it as far as the art in the digital realm? Yes. But you're absolutely right. Having the physical book, and Stan's right too, having the physical book is amazing because you get that new or old comic book smell and other things, whatever else. But for actually consuming the content of the story, that's why I like digital the best. Yeah,
I got you. And it most certainly has its, it has its place. One of the things that we use it for on a Longbox Crusade, come out to play, for instance, Jared will bring up screenshots. And we'll talk about the screenshots. And it's nice to see that as opposed to just talking about it and having someone who may want to listen to the show but not really have any idea about New Warriors, they can at least visualize it, and that's really cool. And let's be honest, every comic book that people podcast about, they don't have the physical copy in their hand. Chances are they're using the digital media in one form or the other and using that digital media to talk about the book. So, yeah. absolutely useful, and has to be a part of how comic books are made going forward.
Absolutely. Who are some of your favorite comics writers and why?
I'll give a shout out at first to my very first one, right, Bob Budiansky. As we go back through Transformers Chronicles, like we have recorded 45, we have 43 out right now. I was impressed at how he took children's toys. These are children's toys, and he made a coherent story. And over again, there were times where, like, I've sort of left the book, like, with a goofy smile on my face, like, that was much better than it even needed to be. It was selling kids' books. It didn't have to be good. Like, what 8-year-old, what 9-year-old is going to be like, I saw some plot holes going on. Like that, it's just not going to happen. So I give him a world of credit for making a book that had a pretty coherent storyline going that an adult could like and that kids could like. So I like that type of writer. I'm a big fan of Brian Michael Bendis. Like, he seems to be super polarizing for whatever reason, but we already talked Ultimate Spider-Man. Ultimate Spider-Man was a revelation. It breathed absolute new life into Spider-Man at a time where Spider-Man needed it. And thankfully, kept Amazing Spider-Man afloat too, because a couple of years before that, I love Amazing Spider. That's my dude. That book was suffering. It was not doing as good. Like, Brian Michael Bendis as an indie guy came into Marvel and breathed new life into it. The Avengers, I know, I'm not trying to trash on the entire run, but by the time Brian Michael Bendis took over the Avengers, Thor was kind of wearing this S&M suit thing, and the Wasp was a butterfly. They had reverted Tony Stark to a teenager. They were all over the place. They just had no idea what to do, and Brian Michael Bendis came in and completely breathed life into the Avengers and sort of turned them into an A-list team. The Avengers were always around, but they weren't really an A-list team. They're kind of B-list. And so, I mean, not only that, but I appreciated Brian Michael Bendis because of how much he breathed life into other characters too. He had an amazing run on Daredevil, even though it was dark. I shouldn't say even though, it was dark and gritty and crime noir. Breathed life into Spider-Man. Luke Cage. He loved Luke Cage and literally took Luke Cage from the scrap heap and turned that dude into, at minimum today, B-list character. Before, he was F-list. And for him to take this character was this is a really cool dude. And at one point, Luke Cage led the Avengers. And it was credible. It was believable. Do you watch wrestling by any chance? Any pro wrestling?
I used to. I stopped at the beginning of the pandemic.
Well, the reason why I bring it up is because, in wrestling, a lot of times, there is a world building element. You can have a dude who looks like chewed bubble gum and is simply not believable as a hero or villain. And then all of a sudden, through weeks and months, you look back and all of a sudden you're like, holy crap. Yeah, I absolutely hate this guy. He's a great heel. And it just took time and development. And that's what I saw Brian Michael Bendis do with a lot of characters. He just kept working at them and making them into believable characters that you cared something about. And sure enough, at one point, I can't remember because he wrote a lot of Avengers and New Avengers, Norman Osborn was being a menace, as Norman Osborn is wont to do. And he had threatened Jessica Jones, who Luke Cage is married to. Mm-hmm. Luke Cage snatched Green Goblin off of the glider and beat the piss out of him. And that is not something that you would have believed in 1997. But in 2007, you absolutely would believe it because Brian Michael Bendis put him through the character beats. So anyway, I'm a fan of his.
Very cool, very cool. Anybody else you want to mention?
Man, there's plenty. I mean, since I've read comic books for 30, almost 40 years at this point, like Kurt Busiek sticks out. Who did I just blank on? Jeff Johns sticks out. Jeff Johns is another amazing world builder. He completely rebuilt Flash and made Flash in the Rogues Gallery something to fear. It was great. Man, I know that there are others that I'm blanking on right now, but those are just a few that just stick out to me as like fantastic. I'll give Dan Slott his credit too. Dan Slott started out writing freaking Beavis and Butthead. And he worked his way up and he took over the flagship character of Marvel comic books and wrote it for over a decade. So big ups to him too. There's a lot of writers that I'm appreciative of, but those are a few.
Yeah, absolutely. What defines a good story to you?
I think a good story can have a lot of things, but ultimately, like I've mentioned with The Wrestler and The Wrestler beats, or Luke Cage and the beats that Brian Michael Bendis put him through, you have to care about the characters. A few, we haven't, I don't think it's come out yet, but we do on the show a series called Amazing Spider-Man Chronicles, where we cover Amazing Spider-Man and then another issue later on. Well, we just read an issue of Amazing Spider-Man, Mike, where they have had this character in a book called Lonesome Pincus. And the dude was like this country Western singer that couldn't sing a lick. And he was keeping Pete up like at nights because he was his next door neighbor. And he was singing all of this terrible music. And finally, and I don't know, at the last episode that we read, or last issue that we read, like Lonesome Pincus was the one, like he got booed off of stage, but like there was like the crowd wound up getting like influenced by this chemical that some bad guy put in the drinks. And like the bartender told him that he had to stay up there and keep singing while Spider-Man ran off to find the antidote and came back and saved the day. And at the end of it, Lonesome Pincus is sitting there like, he literally helped save the day, but that may be the last show that he ever does because he was so bad at it. And I was like, holy crap, this was so good. It was a random issue of Amazing Spider-Man, but I cared about Lonesome freaking Pincus. Which is to say, like, if it's a story that brings out a character and you wind up caring about that character at the end, that there's some emotion at it, then you've got yourself a good story.
Yeah, absolutely. And the story that you're talking about reminds me of the is it in Spider-Man 1 or 2? I think it's in 1. The subway musician where he's singing the classic theme.
Yes.
It's in one of the first 2 Tobey Maguire movies. I forget which. I think it's in the first one. I want to say it's in the first. Like, that's really what that story reminds me of.
Yeah.
And that guy in the subway.
Yeah, man, Lonesome freaking Pincus, dude. Like, I saw that and was like, it was blown away. It's nice though, like that you can kind of get that story that makes you feel that way. And so like that to me is what like a good story needs. It doesn't always have to be like super actiony. It doesn't always have to be just heavy on the exposition, but you have to care about the characters at the end of the day.
Yeah, you have to care about the characters, and I preach this all the time in any media. It has to have balance. You can I've been trying to teach a buddy of mine about comics lately, and I mean, he knows, but he doesn't know kind of stuff.
Right.
And his biggest thing is, oh man, this issue was too much action, or the next issue, this is too much story. And I'm like, yeah, but you also, they have to find the balance in them. Like, if you're reading single issues, that's how it usually goes if you're reading singles. Issue number 1 might have a combination of both story and action. Issue 2 might be all action. Issue 3 might be all story with a little bit of action. But this is why I always and will always suggest people wait for the trade and read the whole damn story. because that way you can get all of it all at once without having to feel like this is too much of this side or this is too much of that side kind of thing.
Yeah, especially if you are, I actually don't mean this term flippantly. If you're casual and you just, the trade paperback is absolutely the way to go for many reasons. It's relatively cheap. You don't have to worry about, like, you can read the whole story in one bite or two, or depending on how long you just want to sit there and read it. And if you want to give it away, it's easy to give away. It's it's a win-win for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does a story have to draw you in? So you go into your local comic store, you go online or whatever, you pick up the new number one or the next issue. What is that, whatever story that they're telling, what does that have to keep Delvin coming back for more?
If it's coming back for more, it's going to go back to, do I care about the character? Is there something in that character that has some sort of trait that I care about? Spider-Man's an easy one. Like I think the first storyline I collected was called was Powerless. And in that, as you might imagine, Peter Parker lost his powers, and yet he still was driven by his responsibility to go out and fight these villains like Tarantula and stuff. And he had no athletic anything, and he was still out there trying to do it, almost getting killed. But in his head, he had to try. So there has to be some sort of reason to care just to keep me coming back, to get me to the book. There has to be a spectacle of some sort that has me interested in it. And that can come in any number of ways. Like a lot of times, like I don't go to a local comic book store to get my books now. I've had the same company or same store, Atomic Empire in Raleigh, and I live in North Carolina, and I still haven't been there live, which is a shame on my part. But like, I used to love going into comic book stores, and your comic book guy would always like have some book that they're ranting and raving about. I learned about Kingdom Come like in the mid 90s as a result of my comic book guys like, dude, this is something you want to collect. This is good. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. Like, I didn't know. I was a teenager. And and he was right. It was good. It was damn good. So, like, as long as it has that spectacle in it, then I am okay. Like, that's going to get me, especially if a friend recommended it. I'm very easily swayed by a friend's passions. We talked about that already, too. Yeah. Like, if somebody is telling me about something that they love, and they thought enough of me to tell me about it, then chances are, like, what is it going to hurt for me to listen to a song? What is it going to hurt for me to buy one comic book? And if I like it, then cool. I got something to talk to my friend about. If not, then it's like, I wasn't the craziest about it, but I really do appreciate you recommending it to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Who are some of your favorite comics artists?
My number one guy is Mark Bagley. I fell in love with him from New Warriors, where there's something about his lines, how crisp and clean they are. I've never seen him draw a character where he just looked uncomfortable drawing that character. And he, at this point, has gone across the Marvel. He dabbled in DC for a second and came right back to Marvel. They had him on Batman. I'm talking about for like 30 minutes. And then took him off of it. Like, why? You couldn't make Mark Bagley work? It was how? I have collected several books simply because Mark Bagley was drawing it. Let's see. Humberto Ramos has a unique, distinct style, and not surprisingly, he has drawn a ton of Spider-Man. I have gone back, just staying on the Spider-Man vein, through some of the books that we've discussed and looking at older issues. Like I did a Fire and Water, a podcast with Ryan Daly, where we talked about Captain America back in the day, and Sal Buscema drew it. And man, as a kid growing up, I did not like his style. And going back and looking at it, I'm like, holy cow, this man can draw. He just drew fun comics. They were just fun to look at. I could talk about my Transformers days. Like Jose Delbo was an absolute prince. Like, I loved how he came on and breathed new life into the book. Let's see. I was a big fan of Joe Quesada's when Joe Quesada drew. Like, he drew a fantastic Daredevil run that I won't forget. A big time fan of his. Back in the day, I loved Todd McFarlane. I loved him. I was so mad when, like, I swear he drew Spawn for like a year and then was like, I'm bored. I want to make more money, so I'm gonna like do trading cards. Like, as an adult, I get that. It makes sense.
But as a kid, you're like, no, just keep drawing the damn comics that I love.
Yes, keep drawing Spawn. Spawn is cool. I'm not interested in seeing Greg Capullo draw anything. Quick correction: Greg Capullo can draw his ass off. I was wrong, but man, at the time I was upset because I was. Like his Spider-Man was so dynamic, and then of course Eric Larson came along and did the same thing. By the way, he was the artist when I was drawing Spider-Man. Man, again, like with artists, since I can't draw, Mike, I like have trouble drawing a stick figure. So like to see someone have an idea and they're able to bring it to life on the paper like they have. Even if you're the worst artist, like just someone whose art that I just like, I don't like this, the most that I'll say is like, you know what? I'm not a big fan of the art, but you know what? At the same time, I can't do it. Like if you listen to any Amazing Spider-Man Chronicles, you'll hear me say that, like, man, I can't draw for anything. So I'm not going to spend too much time crapping on anyone's work. But those are a few that I'm a big fan of.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm no artist either, and I took art classes in elementary school. I can't draw for nothing. But there's just certain times where you know, as a comic book reader, the style you like, no matter which artist it is, but you know for me, I like a lot of polished stuff with a lot of color. So, Marvel Transformers US just 5 colors, really? That's it? 5? Mm-hmm. I need more than 5 damn colors. And white I don't count because that just is used everywhere. But yeah, no, it just depends on what you like. It's not, there's no shade to any, at least on my part, there's no shade to any artist. If it's art that I don't like, I'll just say, hey, this is just not my cup of tea, but the story's good.
Yeah, and I mean, you know that phrase, you know, I don't know art, but I know what I like.
Yep.
And I think that applies here. Like and as soon as like you're going to be that person like, oh, this person's art sucks. Like, okay, well, let's see you do better. Mm-hmm. Let's see you become critically acclaimed in your field, you know, or whatever. So yeah, I'm always careful to caution myself of saying, you know, this sucks or that sucks. But but plenty of artwork I do like.
Yeah, that's just the way I phrase it. Either if it's something I really love, I'll say, oh, I really love this, or this is awesome, or that's awesome, and maybe this isn't my favorite kind of like, but I'm never going to say this specifically sucks kind of thing, because that's just too finite of an opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you have a favorite non-superhero title?
I was listening to the one that you showed me, and Transformers. Transformers was used as an answer, so I would like to use Transformers as probably my best answer given because like since I'm mainly a Marvel DC guy, most of the comic books that I collect are superheroes.
So with Transformers, are you just how much of Transformers comics have you read?
I read all of the first series that came out, the 84 series. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing Transformers Generation 2 come out, and I was in full sulk mode and was like, I'm not reading this. This isn't because they even advertise it like this isn't your father's Transformers.
That's right.
Which shouldn't have upset me. I was like 15. and yet I did. It bothered me, and so I didn't read Generation 2. And by that time, like Beast Wars, the cartoon was coming out. I didn't really watch any of that. I collected some Dreamwave when they had the book. Or was it IDW?
Dreamwave first, then
it was
IDW.
Dreamwave first, and I swear they had a run going, and they just stopped.
Well, they just stopped because the whole company went bankrupt because the CEO did some nefarious American greed type stuff, I think, if I remember correctly, without looking it up, which I'm probably not remembering it correctly. But yeah, Dreamwave shut down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that would explain it, because I tell you what, man, I was digging it. I was digging the artwork and the style and everything. Yep. And then all of a sudden it just disappeared, and I didn't know what happened to it. And at the time, the internet wasn't as huge as it is now. So, I could have found that answer out in like 5 minutes now. And I collected some Transformer Spotlight that I think IDW came out with. If there was a character that I thought was cool, I picked that up. But I haven't collected any main series until just recently, the Daniel Warren Johnson series that came out.
Skybound, yeah.
I saw a lot of hype about it, and I said, well, hey, let me give it a shot. And like, I've read through the first 2 so far, and it's been really, really good. He has stripped it down and just made it very relatable, and I'm interested to see where the storyline goes. So it's been really fun.
Yeah, it has been very, very fun. It's going to be interesting to see. And I love the way that Skybound Under Image is doing, because Skybound Entertainment is Under Image Comics. I love how they're doing their arcs. So the way they're doing their arcs, for the people listening to the sound of my voice, you probably know this by now. 6 issues and then a new arc. So issue 7 to 12 will be an arc. Issue whatever to whatever will be an arc, I guess.
Okay.
And I just think that's great. And that's also great for trades, because that way you don't have, too many issues in a trade paperback. 6 is usually 5, somewhere between 5 and 6 is usually average for trades. So that's good and that's fun. And that series has been a lot of fun. I think you'd like IDW. I don't know. The way it was recommended to me was start with the death of Optimus Prime. This is IDW 2.0, so this is after their earlier stuff. Start with the death of Optimus Prime, and then either go More Than Meets the Eye or Robots in Disguise. More Than Meets the Eye takes place out in space. Robots in Disguise is on Cybertron, and it's dealing with Starscream being a political leader.
I can imagine how that would go.
Yeah, it doesn't go so well for Starscream.
Yeah.
But no, we spent a good number of years on the show doing IDW 2.0. I think we've covered all of it at this point, and it was, overall, I really enjoyed it for the most part. And one thing, somebody said to me something about Shockwave and how he became Shockwave from being Senator. I'm like, oh, okay, oh, right. Okay, I guess I'll have to check that out, because that has me, kind of intrigued. Like, how did oh, damn. Yeah. So it was one of those moments.
And you see, like, that spectacle is what drew you in. You're like,
yep.
Like, they gave the origin story of Shockwave being a senator. I kind of want to see that.
Yeah, well, it's how he becomes Shockwave, the Shockwave we know, the design we know and love over the years. It's how that happens. It's like, holy shit.
Nice.
Yeah. What is your favorite run or story arc of a series? Favorite run could be like Batman number whatever to whatever, Spider-Man number whatever to whatever. Story arc obviously is whatever story arc it is.
So going with my guy Spidey at first, like, I will start with J. Michael Straczynski, who was sort of the hot name at the time, but man, oh man, did Spider-Man need a breath of life, because like what happened was right after the Clone Saga, the Clone Saga was supposed to be like a 6-month in and out thing, and like, the writers had it, they were going to do it in and out, and the editors were like, hey, the numbers of Spidey boosted, so you need to keep the storyline going. And they're like, We don't want to keep the storyline going. And they're like, you will do it or you'll get fired.
Yeah.
And so, like, they kept it going, and it got so convoluted that they wound up having to bring back Norman Osborn, and fans were leaving the book in droves. And so they finally renumbered the book. And, like, but they kept basically the same creative team on there. Howard Mackey, and I think John Byrne was on the book for a second, and it wasn't good. It was not good. And, like, then they finally got, like, well, they did two things. That over in Adjectiveless Spider-Man, Paul Jenkins and Mark Buckingham started doing the book, which, they just did these great slice of life stories that were just fantastic. And then J. Michael Straczynski came on the Amazing Spider-Man, and he started the Moreland storyline, where he tied Spider-Man to, like, this whole ancient totem of how he got his powers. And Moreland's job was basically to cull the entire universe of the spider totem. Fascinating stuff. Like, it went from Spider-Man just being dead in the water to holy crap, it was so good. Like at one point, one of the cliffhangers in the book, and they retconned it, because of course they did, but like Spider-Man had like been being chased by Moreland all over the place. He barely escapes, and he was so exhausted, he basically gets into his like apartment, into the bed, and passes out. Well, guess who's coming through the door about that time? Aunt freaking May.
Yes.
And the look she had on her face, like, oh my God. It was like, what? Like, he absolutely just breathed new life into Spider-Man, and I'm forever grateful to him for that. When I was listening to the show you provided me, and this question came up, that was one of the first runs that I thought of, because it made me stay in love with Spider-Man, because I was dangerously close to falling out of love with Spider-Man. And what I've always told myself is, if I stop reading Spider-Man, I'm going to stop collecting comic books, period. And I didn't want to stop collecting comic books, but Spider-Man at the time was just ghastly. It was not good.
Yeah, I need to go back and rediscover some Spidey stuff, because after Superior, I just moved on. It wasn't that I didn't want to read the Nick Spencer run or whatever. I don't know. I don't think Nick is still doing it, is he? I don't remember.
No, he did his run about 75 to 80 issues or so, and he's done.
Yeah. So when that happened, when Dan moved on and did other things, I was like, oh, well, let me, like, I love, even though it's a short story thing, Tony Stark Iron Man, I love that series, because it's Dan Slott writing Iron, like, holy crap. That was cool. But yeah, I need to rediscover Spidey, and I just need to get back to it and all that good stuff.
He did a good job on that too. And I started reading his Fantastic Four. I read a decent amount of it, but I haven't. I've let my comic books stack up. So I need to read the end of it. But he was doing some good stuff there. He does very good story building, but he also understands the main character of the book very, very well. And that's always been his driving strength. Sometimes people make the books more about like the villains or the rogues gallery, but he never forgets the hero and what they're about. And I appreciate Dan Slott for that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. What is one comic you can read over and over again, single issue or trade?
I don't get to do this enough. Man, like it's one of those where I started podcasting six plus years ago, Mike, and since then, like I look up and I realize I still get my pull list, but I don't get to read my pull list a ton. Because a lot of times I'm doing things for assignment for Longbox Crusade. I don't mind that. That's not a complaint. I still get to read comic books. But I very rarely get to stop and think, man, you know what? This was a good book. Let me go back and read the whole run again. I wish I had time to do that. And I just I haven't made the time to do it. But that said, since I podcast, one of the, like, it has allowed me to go back and started reading some books episodically, like I have with New Warriors. Like, I remember, and I've said over and over again how much I adore the run of New Warriors. But it's like, I haven't read New Warriors in decades. Why don't I do a podcast about it? And so I get to rediscover it, and I'm already thinking, like, especially because, like, I got Jared into it. I've given him some New Warriors and stuff. Once we get through the run, which will happen in a couple of years from now, if we want to keep this going, I would probably do something like pick up like Darkhawk, because I read Darkhawk as a kid, and I enjoyed it because it was new and it was different. And so I absolutely would read that again, because like the whole thing that I think that I am trying to recapture at this point was just how I felt about it as a kid, and where was I at the time, and what memories that come from that. But also, a book is really good if it still holds up. Mm-hmm. Like, if you can take a book now, I mean, much like characters, like, for every person who incorrectly says that Superman is boring, it's like, well, how boring is he if they're still going to make movies about him? Mm-hmm. And it's 2024, and Superman has been around since the 30s.
Yeah.
Like, that is a character that, has stood the test of time. So people want to continue to hear his story. And so that's one thing that I have enjoyed about at least podcasting, is that I get that opportunity to at least do that with some books. I wish I had more time to just read more books in their entirety as far as the run goes, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of my 2024 initiative with the podcast is, number one, to get us to 600 episodes. So right now we're at 541 in this episode, so I got 18 to go after this. And number two, starting with episode 600, I've had this plan for years, folks, but unfortunately I need to figure out more books to include in it, because I only have 67 out of 90 Nights of Nightwing, starting at the beginning, going to whenever current is with that character, wherever he is. And the only thing I'm not counting is some of the Teen Titans stuff and that horrid Agent 37 Grayson bullshit. Oh, God, give me a break.
I read Grayson.
I read the first two trades, and I was like, you asshats should not have killed him.
I don't even remember him dying. That's the thing. Yeah, crazy. That tells you what the lasting memory that I have of the Grayson book is they kept on with the joke about him having an amazing ass.
Yeah, that's really the only thing that counts from Grayson, really, honestly. So at the end of Kyle's run, because Kyle got five volumes, he got 5 volumes. How many? Like 30. He got 30 issues total. At the end of that, they go into Forever Evil, and Forever Evil, spoilers, they kill him because Dan DiDildo is a DiDildo, and he wanted to kill him because he's never liked Dick Grayson.
I remember that. Like, he tried to kill him in Final Crisis too.
Yep. They always just want to kill him. But yeah, that's been an ultimate goal of mine for the last couple of years, and I'm finally going to hopefully be doing it this year. 90 Nights of Nightwing, folks. Daily podcasts. Oh God, so much so much editing.
God bless you on that bit.
If I can pull it off, yeah. If I can pull it off. Well, we don't like to be negative around here, but are there any comics you avoid altogether? So you go into whatever, I know you said you don't go into comic shops, but let's say you went into a comic shop, you see this character, this character, this character, this character. Which one is the one that you just don't care to read?
Well, the long-lasting joke with in Long Box Crusade, and I think I was the one that brought it out, was about Spider-Man Chapter 1 that John Byrne did. And it was a John Byrne production. John Byrne wrote it, he drew it, he inked it. I think he put the staples in the book. It was at that time where he had just been overextended. And so he had the idea before Bendis did, I suppose, of, hey, what happens if we do a retcon of Amazing Spider-Man? That should be cool, right? What happened was, like, he made these cosmetic changes, and then like he got lazy with how teenagers talked, which like immediately zoned. Like you could tell it was like a man in his 40s or 50s or however old Byrne was at the time, writing dialogue that he thought teenagers said. One of the revelations that Brian Michael Bendis, when they're like, your dialogue is so good, he's like, I literally just sit in the mall and listen to teenagers talk. Yeah. What a novel idea. So one of the reasons that like I wasn't the hugest fan of Spider-Man Chapter 1 is like it just got lazy. It got so lazy and uninspired that like I'm a completionist, and that's what made me complete the run. But like by the time and it was supposed to go 12 issues and they extended it to 13. And by the time they did it, I was just like, why? It was torture for me to read it. And that's not something that I usually say with Spider-Man anything. Yeah. So that'd be my choice.
So question, slide aside here, since we're talking about Spider-Man. I've always been curious because I kind of like his writing, but I wish he would not use so many explosives in people's brains. How was the J.J. Abrams Spider-Man?
J.J. Abrams Spider-Man.
I swear he had like a small run.
He did. He not on Amazing. He did like a mini series, but I didn't.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, it was a mini series.
Yeah, I didn't read it.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go.
New York City. If only everything down there was really as peaceful as it looks from up here.
Are there any comics in the past or currently that you wish you had not read them? Like, oh my God, why did I waste my time with this?
Well, we already talked about Spider-Man Chapter 1. Let's see.
There's that.
The only... and it falls along the same lines because I really did listen to what you sent me, and I remember hearing this question, and my thought was I collected the first full run of Deadpool, and the first run was by Joe Kelly. Oh my God, amazing, freaking like side splitting funny, like absolutely what Deadpool should be. And then Christopher Priest took over. Chris Priest did a very cerebral but hilariously funny run of Deadpool. And then Jimmy Palmiotti took over. Not good. It was I remember by the time that it got to where like Deadpool like fought like these Britney Spears twins or something. Oh my God. It was like, man, no, this isn't it. It just like I felt like I was basically wasting my time through it. And again, because I'm a completionist, I didn't feel like just dropping the book outright because like I either thought the next issue was going to be better or was going to turn the ship around. But it says a lot that like I got through that entire like run of whenever I think by the time he was done, that initial run of Deadpool ended, and I remember nothing about it other than derision, and that's not good.
Yeah, I think the only Palmiotti stuff I've ever read is his original series that he did. It was a 4-issue miniseries, Pop Kill. It was Kickstarter campaign stuff. And then his Batwing run with Luke Fox. Batwing Volume 4 and 5 from New 52. And I have not read anything else that he's done since. I liked Batwing. I actually loved Batwing. I thought it was great. I just haven't. He's not a writer that I've really followed all that much.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I was like, was it good? Because
no, it was good. In the New 52, somebody else, Batman of Africa or something, was Batwing for the first 3 volumes. And then in volume 4, they make it be Luke Fox. who is the son of Lucius Fox, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And because I like Lucius and I like Luke, it was a really good run. It was 2 volumes. Episode. Oh, it was back in 21 we did that episode. I don't remember which episode. I usually have all 540 episodes. I can pull them out of a hat. And unfortunately, I can't with that. I'll get that after the show for you. But no, it was a good run. It's just I haven't really, like, I know he does a lot of stuff with Harley, and while I like Harley, she's not number 1 on my reading list at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, that kind of sucks. You'd think with his sense of humor and how he writes that he would do better on Deadpool.
Yeah. It came across like the Man Show.
Okay.
And like it's one of those, is like, if you're in a certain type mood or if you're ready for a certain type of humor, then it's good. Like burlesque humor. But like that wasn't really Deadpool at the time.
Yeah.
Like he was more slapstick.
Yeah.
And winking at the fourth wall than he was burlesque. And he turned it more burlesque, and I just didn't like the direction.
Yeah. How large or small is your physical comic book collection?
I should be creeping up on 15,000 comic books.
Where do you put them all?
Like I would ask you not to ask personal questions like that. I'm kidding. So I have a comic book room where I have like these big containers called tombs that most of them are in. And like when I initially got those big ridiculous containers, my thought was it was going to house all of my comic books. It housed 70% of them at the time. And so now like I have like 70% of my comic books in there and like 30% of them sitting in long boxes of how, like, I think of how the comic books I've collected over the past probably 6 years or so. And so maybe more, maybe 7 or 8, but either way, like, so that's where they are. And at some point I'm going to sell off enough comic books that they just fit inside of those 5 containers, just so the room looks a little bit better. And like there's going to be books that even if I have all the time in the world, I'm never going to go back and read. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so like I would rather put them in a public library or sell them to somebody who actually will get value from them, or will pass them along to their kids or something like that, rather than them just sitting in my room collecting dust.
Ladies and gentlemen, he calls those bins tombs. I guess you could say he's a vulture for reading.
Oh, I get you. I'm with you there.
So everybody is safe. Wife, kids, pets, whatever. The house is on fire. What's the one comic you could never live without ever?
See, yet another one I remember. And this one I'm absolutely ready for. That's easy for me. Amazing Spider-Man 1.
Interesting. Very cool.
Yeah, because chances are I could sell that Amazing Spider-Man 1 and basically buy the rest of my collection.
Yep.
So if I'm picking up 1 and probably 2 right after it if I can. If the carbon monoxide has not completely overwhelmed my brain at that point, then I would go after 2 as well.
That's funny. What is the most money you spent on a comic or comic item? Comic item could be art print, statue, etc.
Oh no, it's comics. It would be that Amazing Spider-Man 1. It hasn't quite been a year since I picked it up. I picked it up at Heroes Con here in Charlotte. Mm-hmm. I have the name of the guy, but like I got the card somewhere, but I don't have it on me now. Mm-hmm. I did a panel. For whatever reason, I was asked to do a panel on podcasting. And so did the panel. Of course, my buddies, Jared, Pat, Jason were with me, along with like Ruth and Darren from Rad Adventures and several other people, Derek William Crabb as well, and from Fanholes. And it had a blast. It was a great time. And so I'm walking down, and at that point, Mike, I had been on a mission that had gone on for a couple of years that I was like, you know what? like I'm at a good point in my life, financially stable wise, so I'm going to start looking up every Amazing Spider-Man comic book, and I want to get the full run. So by that time, I was down to 3.
Wow.
Which were 1, 2, and 9, and I was feeling good, and I just happened to go down it's I saw the first store or setup that I went to. It's like, you know what? Let me just see. And sure enough, I'm talking about I'm 6'3", so I'm a tall dude. Right in my eye line, Mike, there was 1, 2, skip, 9, and I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. So I checked the credit card. I'm like, and then called my wife honey, I'm about to do a thing.
My OCD is about to ruin us financially.
And she said go for it. So I'm not gonna give the full money amount, but let's say it was low 5 figures that I spent on Amazing Spider-Man 1.
Wow,
bro, I'm still paying for that.
Well, of course you are.
Yeah, I am still paying for that. It was not like I bought Amazing Spider-Man 1 and then was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go and because I'll tell you, I want Amazing Fantasy 15. I want it, and I'm gonna get it. But I first have to let my credit card cool off.
Yeah.
And then one of these days I will be getting Amazing Fantasy 15.
Very cool, very cool. You mentioned earlier about wanting to sell some of the stuff off or give it away to kind of quell your collection, but was there ever a moment when you were just completely done with comics altogether, pack it up, walk away?
No, thankfully. I have the closest that I got was during those down times in the late 90s, early 2000s when Amazing Spider-Man was just awful. And I had always had the adage, if I quit Amazing Spider-Man, I'm going to quit collecting comic books entirely. So I have not done that. The closest that I've been to that moment would kind of be now, actually. And not for any loss of love for comic books, but more that I haven't made time in my life now to sit down and just read them. I don't feel like I'm appreciating them like I should. Now, that said, anytime that I sit down and I'm reading something that's non-podcast related, I could be having a stressful day. It winds me down. It brings me peace. And that is what will keep me collecting them. But I don't feel like I don't have that enthusiasm like I had when I was in college, and it would be comic book day and you'd run and get comic books and you'd immediately go home and start picking up and at the time I would arrange them by the one I was most excited to read all the way down to one that I could maybe wait a little bit, but sure enough, in the span of a couple hours, they were all devoured. And I'm not doing that anymore. And it makes me wonder, is my love for comic books still the same? I think the answer to that is probably no, but it's only because I've just had other interests is all. But thankfully, there's not been a point since I started collecting comic books at 9 that I have stopped collecting comic books.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, I can't read them just to read them. I read them for the show because I know as soon as I'm done reading them, I'm going to want to talk about them, and I can't have conversations with myself. I have too many of those already. You know what I mean?
I do.
It's the IDW Turtles run that's about to end with issue 150. Then they're relaunching with Jason Aaron at the writing helm. My buddy Joe and I have been covering that since the podcast started back in 2013, and we are TMNT Reborn volumes 3 and 4, which I think is issues 112 to 123.
Mm-hmm.
out of 150. So, yeah, when I read those, I was like, oh, okay, Joe, let's record. We haven't had a chance to record them yet. We're going to hopefully record them soon. But, yeah, for me, it's like I love reading comics in the moment and then either later that day or the next day or the next night or whatever. It's like coming on here and talking to somebody about what we've read and just having a discussion. That's how I love reading comics.
Yeah.
And read them just to read them. I'm like, I'm not doing anything with this. Like I'm enjoying it. I enjoy reading it, but like I need to do something else with it.
And see, that's like back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was what the local comic book shop was great for.
Yep.
Like you knew you were going to go in there and you were going to have some fellow geeks and nerds, and you were going to talk some damn comic books. And it was something to look forward to. Now, we've condensed it a little bit more. Like you want to get on a podcast and talk about it to one of your friends, and then you want to broadcast it out to the world, to the to the World Wide Web, and every now and again, I know your show has followers that void comes back and starts talking to you. So you just sort of changed the forum of which you're talking about comic books.
Yeah. Absolutely. What are you reading right now, and what do you think our listeners should be checking out?
I'm still, like, now and forever a fan of Amazing Spider-Man. Zeb Wells is writing the book right now, and the artwork has been fantastic. The main artist has been Ed McGuinness, even though there have been several other artists, and Ed, as you know, like he does, like, I don't know if you like his style or not. He has that cartoony style, in a sense, in the style of like a Eric Larson in a way, if you think about it. And like it's fun to look at, and like in the storyline, I think they're embroiled in right now is a gang war that was very carefully laid out and built up. So I appreciate that a whole lot. So Amazing Spider-Man has been the book that I've kept up with and appreciated the most. So I'm going to recommend that you go check out some Amazing Spider-Man.
Very cool, very cool. Heroes, heroines, anti-heroes, and heroines or villains. What archetypes are your go-to reads?
Heroes. Especially nowadays, man, I'm a big fan of the story of the hero. And sorry to anyone who doesn't like Spider-Man, like you might want to listen to another show, but I'm going to talk Spider-Man some more. The thing that I like, Spider-Man he's flawed as hell. He's very flawed. Like his origin story was a loss. Like he lost his uncle, the guiding light in his life, and he's going to spend the rest of the time that he's Spider-Man or on this earth trying to make up for that mistake. But that's compelling stuff. Like, and that is what a true hero really is. Like, there has to be some sense of tragedy somewhere and some reason that keeps them going. Like they pared it down really simply. Amazing Spider-Man just recently went over 900 issues for the entire run. And one of the side stories, I think, doesn't even matter, but like a kid asked him something like why do you do all of this? Like what's your motivation? And he says, I can. So I do. And I saw that. I'm like, you don't have to make me fall in love with you all over again, Spidey. I already love you, man. Like to hear that like means so much to me. And to me, like that is the purest distillation of what a hero should be. They take some tragedy and they spend the rest of their time trying to recover from that tragedy, either for their own good or for what they feel like they need to put back in the world via karma, one way or the other. Yeah.
That reminds me of New 52 Nightwing number 29, where the exact same thing happens. Little girl that he's trying to rescue asks him a similar question to that, and he goes through and tells her in no uncertain terms his origin and why he feels the way he feels and why he does what he does. And man, stories like that just tug at your heartstrings and just make you want to love the character even more.
And if And what I would also hope, because I have no issues in saying that, like, a lot of my moral and value set comes from like Amazing Spider-Man. It means a lot to me to say with great power comes great responsibility. Or actually, Dan Slide actually corrected this on Twitter. With great power must come great responsibility.
Yeah.
Like you absolutely have a responsibility if you have the power to use it responsibly. And like I absolutely have taken that to heart and try to apply a lot of that to my real life. So there's that too.
Absolutely. Do you have a my parents got rid of my comics story?
Man, no. I'm so grateful. Like I have heard so many stories about people having their stuff thrown out. My mom is an awesome woman, and she would never do that. Like the thing, like because she knew what they meant to me. So even if I left them at home, like she would ask me, like I need you, like I gotta clear out space, honey. I need you to come get them. She would not just give them away. Yeah. So I'm very, very fortunate I don't have one of those stories.
Very cool, very cool. What is one item from a comic book you'd love to have in the real world?
Whew. I think, well, for me, an easy answer is Green Lantern's ring.
That's everyone's easy answer.
Right? Right? Like, because, like, I could say something like Batman's suit, but, like, I'm in pretty decent shape. But one, everyone's going to know it's me instantly, right? Like, and two, like, would I even fit in that suit? It's like, you have people, like, whispering, is Batman supposed to have a beer gut? Hey, shut up. So, like, yeah, I would rather have something, like, magical that, like, you wouldn't be able to like replicate, and like it wouldn't be something that would be common to the earth like that we live in now. So I'm gonna go with Green Lantern's ring.
Who's your favorite Lantern character?
John Stewart.
Yep, that's the right answer.
they remade him into an absolute badass. I collected Green Lantern and the Green Lantern, or excuse me, Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. Mm-hmm. And the leader of the Green Lantern Corps was not Hal, it was John. And John was he was the man that you wanted in charge because he was always just like one step ahead. He knew how to plan on that battlefield. And like, since I heard, he used to be like an architect or something, but they retconned him and he's now like a former U.S. Marine, which just makes much more sense to the character and how they have him now. Yeah, John is the dude.
Yep, absolutely. We are now entering the comic book fantasy funland. If you could own any vehicle featured in a comic, which would it be?
I'm going to go with the Spider Buggy.
Of course he is, folks.
It's fun, you know. Like, I mean, yeah, cool. I think a more practical answer, a more man answer would be like the Batmobile, right? Yeah. Like, you know, give like to me the Spider Buggy would be fun, and I could like ride around like town with my buddies, and people would point at it, and it's like, man, that's really cool, and it would just be a good fun time to have. And of course, it would have to play the Spider-Man theme song, either through the speakers or I honk the horn and it plays it, one or the other, you know?
That's right.
So I'm going to go with the Spider Buggy.
Yeah, I mean, you are right. The Batmobile usually is the number one answer, but for me, I would probably take it one step further and go the Beyond Batmobile, because we all need a flying Batmobile, folks.
and heck, you know what? Like a good answer for the previous question would be the Batman Beyond suit, because the Batman Beyond suit was so cool.
Yes, it was. If you could live in any comic book world that you wanted to, where would you live?
Ooh. Man, I tell you what, like the way that my life is now, like the way my life is now, like I always joke between comic book movies or between movies in general and comic books, like, you know where I would want to like live or like on something like Independence Day? I'm going to just go to Birmingham, Alabama. Ain't nobody gonna attack Birmingham, Alabama ever. You're gonna go like to the New Yorks. You're gonna go to the Los Angeleses. Like, you're never going to Birmingham, Alabama. Like, so, like, I kind of like my life being quiet and peaceful, Mike. So, so you can give me regular Marvel 616, but I'm going to be somewhere off grid where I don't have to go and worry about, like, okay, I was just going to get ice cream, and next thing I know, you know, like, Spider-Man's punching me in the face, or, like, my building's exploding. Like, like, can you imagine the PTSD the average New Yorker has in the Marvel 616?
Mm-hmm.
Insane.
Yep. Insane. Who would be your top 3 comic pals to join you and become a barbershop quartet?
Ooh. I want to pick Bruce Wayne. He's got to have a deep, gravelly voice, right? Like, so, like, that would play well in a barbershop quartet, especially if I were trying to do something like cool and like Viking themed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go with him. Got to have Dazzler, because Dazzler is literally a rock star. So like, she could also, like, if I had like a really cool like metal band, she could be like a front woman from it, like the light display point, and I know she has to have pipes. So like there's that, and see, I can't pick Peter. I don't think Peter can sing. But you know what? I'm gonna go with another woman then, and since I've been very Spidey centric, I'll say Mary Jane. I don't know if Mary Jane could sing, but guess what? Like, if you already have someone who could like perform and like be the main show like Dazzler, and you got somebody with a gravelly voice like Bruce Wayne, I could just put Mary Jane behind the drum set and have her like learn some simple drum beats, and I think we'd have a pretty good band going.
I want to say at one point or another in the 94 cartoon, she sang one or two. I swear I remember hearing a Mary Jane voice actress singing somewhere in some alternate reality, whatever. I could be wrong, though.
You might be getting that confused with Jason Albrecht's impression of Mary Jane from Longbox Crusade.
Oh boy, let's hope not.
I was gonna say, like, don't talk about your dreams if that's the case. I don't get past that.
Nightmare fuel. If you could, flashback to when you were single, etc. You're not married, all that stuff. If you could date any comics character, who would it be?
Just said it, Mary Jane. Mary Jane Watson is. She is a pistol in the way that you would want your woman companion to be a pistol. Like, she is smart, she is capable, she is beautiful. Like, literally was a model, but at the same time, like, the most down to earth human being that you'd ever want to meet. Like when she said all of those years ago, "Face it, Tiger, you hit the jackpot." Like. She did. She absolutely is the freaking jackpot. She is. She is money. And there's a reason that, like, oh my God, I hope they in the Nick Spencer run. I'm not spoiling it because, but in the Nick Spencer run, they came so close, Mike. They flirted with retconning the One More Day storyline. They flirted with it.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. They didn't.
Damn it.
They didn't do it. And so like, but Peter and Mary Jane are still close. They can just never, like, there's always going to be something in a way that prevents them from being married until they retcon it. But like, yeah, Mary Jane is she is somehow simultaneously that girl that your mom warned you about, but that girl that you want to settle down with. That's Mary Jane.
Yeah, I've said this for 11 and a half years, folks. Almost 11 years, because this episode will be out before our 11th anniversary. Felicia Hardy, Black Cat, and Marvel. Man, I have had a crush on Jennifer Hale's voice since I was 14 years old when I heard Black Cat talk for the first time. Oh my God. Just
Yes. I don't care what she does to me. I don't care whatever. I don't care what I have to do to keep her. I would follow that character to the ends of the earth.
So you like, I know you don't watch wrestling, and you can keep this in or not. I don't care. Like if like the character Rhea Ripley, you need to look her up, Mike.
I've seen her.
She's got Black Cat energy.
Yes, she does.
She's got that Black Cat energy to where it's like, and I love how they brought her along too. Like in Amazing Spider-Man Chronicles that we do as of this recording, we are back in like 1981, and the character Black Cat was introduced, but the last time that we saw her, she was kind of like this lovesick puppy for Amazing Spider-Man. And they gradually grew her character like to where like they were dating Spider-Man and Black Cat, and Spider-Man's like, well, I want to show you who I am, and she's like, no, I don't know. I don't care about none of that. Like, I want to see what that spider do. And now they've evolved her more because they recently dated, but they broke up because it was like, because they both kind of like, they're like, like we're not what either one of us need, but they're still very good friends.
Yeah.
But like, man, like, can you imagine? Like, I know it's a comic book. Like, just imagine, if you will, for a second, that you are a guy. You are a dude, and you can claim, like, at the end of the day, I hate this term, and I'm using it very loosely, body count. Your body count included Mary Jane and Felicia Hardy.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot.
And maybe more. Catch you later, Spider.
You know, I think my life just got a lot more interesting.
You're gonna be sitting in heaven. Oh my God, what does she smell like? She smelled amazing, didn't she? Oh, absolutely. She smelled like lilacs and dandelions all the time. Even after she sweat, that's exactly what she smelled like. Like, oh my God, what a great story. Tell us again. Yeah.
So another one. Yeah, Black Cat's awesome. Another one that I want to eventually get to. I know J. Scott Campbell was doing the covers. I don't know if he was doing They did a Black Cat Mary Jane book.
Yes.
I forget how many issues it was. It was supposed to be just a miniseries. I don't think it was supposed to be this long, drawn-out thing. I love J. Scott Campbell's art. I always have. And some of those covers, oh my God. For that series, just amazing.
There was a very famous. Wait, no, that was Mary Jane. It was a Mary Jane cover that it was a alternate cover for one of the Amazing Spider-Man, and it's like she's nude, but like she's covered herself with like the Spider-Man costume, and it's like, I
remember that.
It's like, J. Scott, bro, you need to chill. You need to chill, man. Stop playing. Stop playing like that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, last question before we exit the comic book fantasy funland. What is the holy grail of comic book artifacts? The Batarang, Matrix of Leadership, Kryptonite, Green Lantern Ring, etc.
Probably the Fortress of Solitude. Like, that would be a place that I would want to go. Like, because one, Superman, the most powerful hero that's ever existed, like, lives there, and he comes there when he wants to chill out and get away from it all. And then the other part of it is, like, he has such an appreciation and a love for his planet and other worlds that he's been to. He keeps artifacts all over the place. And unlike the Batcave, where like Bruce Wayne keeps a lot of his stuff, but it's like dark and gritty and all that, like, you get the feeling that Clark or Superman would have a more hopeful view, and you would see happier and wondrous versions of certain things across the universe. So not only would you get the perspective of such an awesome hero, you get to see like parts of the world and universe as he sees them, which is through a positive lens. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah. The only thing he cannot keep in there, though, is Starro, because the last time that happened, Shooter McGavin showed up and became evil Superman. All right, folks, we are exiting the comic book fantasy funland. If you could create any comic storyline, what would you want to create, and what characters would you want to create it with? So Marvel gives you the keys to the kingdom. You can do whatever you want. What would you do?
I'm keeping it on the same line. Like, if they gave me carte blanche, I am doing the Spider-Man universe a favor, and I'm retconning one more day. And I don't even, and it's not even that far, like, because this is giving away a little bit of the Nick Spencer storyline. But at one point, like, Doctor Strange steps in, and that was when I really got my hopes up.
Right.
Doctor Strange stepped in and was kind of like, okay, this whole thing right now, something's not right. I'll be back. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, and he found Mephisto. And he started talking with Mephisto, and I'm like, oh. But they didn't do it. And so, like, at some point, like, all it would take is for somehow, like, at the end of, like, some big high-pitched battle that involved the Avengers or all the world's heroes or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, Doctor Strange sees Pete, and it's like, you know what? There's something I forgot to tell you.
Yeah.
And that's all it would take. So, all right, who would I want on this team? Man, I think Dan Slott could write this. Like, I trust his writing. I have like a decade's worth of his stuff. I would go with Slott. I'm absolutely putting Mark Bagley on the book for pencils as well. And for the heck of it, for New Warriors, I'm going to go with, if he's still around, Randy Emberlin. No, Randy Emberlin was his Spidey, was one of his main Spidey ones. Larry Malstedt was in New Warriors, his inker. So I'll go with Larry Malstedt as his inker. And I think, like, 5-6 part storyline, that's all it would take, and we could get Pete and Mary Jane back together.
Or, you know, it's 2024, folks. You could put them on TV and make them get married in the 4th season. Look, say what you will about the guy that plays that character, or about him in his real life. I still love Dean Cain, Clark Kent. I
don't think I watched enough of Lois and Clark. Like, so, like, I'll just leave any opinion that I may or may not have about Dean Cain out of it. But, like, I remember being excited about the show when it came out, because, I mean, it's a comic book show. Mm-hmm. So, and it was a good idea, and it had a market too. Like, people really liked it for the few years it was on. So, hey, thumbs up to that.
What is the one piece of advice you would give the comics fandom in general?
Chill out. Everything doesn't have to be a, no pun intended, crisis. Oh, my goodness. There are so many companies and Twitter followers and Instagram feeds, and they need you constantly in a state of outrage. And it's exhausting to even read. Like, okay, such and such happened. What do you think about it? Like, dang, the thing just happened. Can I take a day or two to marinate on it and think about it? Like, do I need to really comment 5 minutes after a trailer came out what I feel about the whole movie? No. And the same thing with comic books. It's like, hey, this storyline's going to come out, and people are like, oh, I fucking hate it. It sucks. It's like, it hasn't come out yet. Just actually let the writers and creators cook for like 2 seconds before you decided unilaterally that you've hated something. I just don't get that. It's exhausting to me.
Yeah, see, that's going back to the conversation we had earlier, where for me, I've always viewed trailers for anything, comics, music videos, movies, TV shows, whatever it is. It's an advertisement to either get you interested in whatever the thing is, or it's something you look at and say, yeah, that's me. I'm not in it. Like, you can take any horror movie trailer and show it to me, and I still would not be interested because I'm not a horror movie person.
Me neither.
And that's perfectly fine. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and say, like we said earlier, I'm not going to say, oh, that sucks, or oh, I hate that's too much. It's too much stuff in the wrong direction. So, yeah. All right, folks, we're going to go to a quick break. I'm sure you will hear Delvin or other long box people in here because I'm sure I'm going to have to get an ad from them at some point because I get ads for everybody that are on my show. So we're going to hear some ads and some other stuff. We'll come back to close the show right after this.
Because the world needs another movie podcast.
The Geekcast Radio Network presents for your listening pleasure the Cinema Geek.
Hosted by Amanda, Kevin, Matt, and Dan.
Each week we dive headfirst in the landscape of movies as we discuss movie news, play movie games,
go in-depth on reviews,
and even have a top 10 countdown or two.
Also, don't miss our director retrospective series, where we review noted directors' movies film by film. Bottom line is, if you love movies and love podcasts, you need to experience the Cinema Geeks.
You can find us on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, or GeekCastRadio.com.
Hey, welcome to the Last Comic Shop Podcast!
A comic book podcast that actually talks about comics.
Yep, each week we open the shop up and read and discuss a comic.
Sometimes we pair that up with comic book movies or TV shows.
Or not. Lots of times it's just comic books and sound effects.
Oh, yes, definitely lots of sound effects.
So tune in on all the major podcasting platforms to the Last Comic Shop Podcast. Or check out our library of evergreen shows at www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com.
Like science fiction? Of course you do, or you wouldn't be listening to the Geekcast Radio Network. Well, the Mark Who 42's Universe podcast is an award-winning sci-fi radio show that's been around for over 10 years. We cover everything from Doctor Who to the MCU to pop culture and everything in between. A new show drops on Tuesday mornings on the GCRN website and all of the major podcast platforms. So listen to the Mark Who 42's Universe podcast from the universe and beyond.
It is a world transformed, where things are not what they seem. Transformers!
Want to learn a bit about the Transformers? Think you know everything about Cybertron, but are looking to learn a little bit more? Enroll today at Transformers University Podcast. Each episode will tackle a piece of Transformers history, starting in 1984 and marching our way up to today. Hosted by me, Anthony Brucali, 3-time Emmy Award winner and consulting producer on Netflix's The Toys That Made Us, and lifelong Transformers fan. We'll go on a journey through cartoons and comics, toys and movies, and all the weird esoterica from around the world, chronicling the adventures of everyone's favorite robots in disguise. Listen to Transformers University on iTunes, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Transform and roll out!
You are receiving a transmission from the Rod Pod. Upload pending.
Stand by for soundtrack transfer.
I am Maggie.
And I am John.
And we are trapped, hurtling through space in a ship shaped like Rodimus's head.
The ship, for reasons we haven't been able to determine, contains the entire run of the IDW Transformers Phase 2 comic, which chronicle the events following the end of the war between the Autobots and Decepticons. So we figure we may as well read them all in order and report our findings to you. Stand by. Stand by.
Upload complete. Now.
The Rod Pod. Look for us at marriedwcomics.libsyn.com, at iTunes, at Stitcher, or wherever good podcasts can be found.
So, till all are one.
Till all are one.
Till all are one!
Hey, Jared, I have this idea for a new show for the network.
What is it?
You know how I liked the 1990s comic book series, The New Warriors?
Yes. Yep.
And you know how at the Long Box Crusade we're trying to get the YouTube channel going?
Yes, also correct.
Well, thanks. So, how about you and me do a live stream show about the New Warriors? You've never read the books before, and I have them, and so that's a great setup. We could give it a catchy name like Come Out to Play. Don't you think that's the greatest idea?
Sure, Delvin. That's a great idea. Just one question.
Yeah?
Why do you have me dangling off this ledge, holding me by only one arm?
Oh, yeah. Well, you'll get it soon. I hope. Come Out to Play, a New Warriors podcast, comes to you live on YouTube every second Tuesday of the month at 8 p.m. Eastern on the Longbox Crusade channel. If you can't watch it there, we replay them on the Longbox Crusade Network podcast feed, available anywhere podcasts can be found. We invite you to come along for the ride, or in other words, New Warriors, come out to play.
Back here inside the pull bag, Mr. Delvin Williams, sir. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me all about comics. What do you got going on? What projects are you working on? Promote yourself.
Absolutely. I will promote Longbox Crusade more than just me, because it's me and 3 other lads over there, and actually a crew of other zany misfits that are talking about all sorts of things, from comic books, of which I've mentioned quite a few times throughout this conversation, movie serials as well, movies too. Like we got a lot of cool stuff going on the network. I personally host Transformers Chronicles, where we're covering the entire first run of the 1984 Marvel's comic series, The Transformers. I also host a show called Come Out to Play, which is about the first volume of the New Warriors. That was a 1990s series. It's available on YouTube, live stream every second Tuesday of the month at 8 p.m. Eastern. Would love to have you on the live stream as well, just listening along. But we would also like your like or follow on Longbox Crusade, or anywhere you can find podcasts. You can find us as well. We just try and keep things at a positive light, and we have a good time. So we would love for you to come along with us.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts before I run through the closing, sir?
No, man, other than just to say thank you for allowing me to come on. This was a blast. Hopefully it didn't talk your ear off too badly or anything, but like I really did enjoy it, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, man, these are always fun. That's why I created this. We've said this on this show, on this episode, and I say it in every other episode. Look, there are 1,000,001 comic book podcasts out there. There have been 1,000,001 comic book podcasts out there for the last 11 years or longer. When I created the Pull Bag, yes, we do comic reviews, but I also wanted to have something else extra to it, and that's where the origins came from, which originally it was 25 questions. In 2019, we rejiggered it to be 30 questions, and then that has spawned off into other. We've got a Transformers origin stuff, we've got a He-Man origin stuff, we've got cartoons, we've got podcasting, we've got video games now, which just launched this year. So, yeah, no, I love doing these things. It's always fun hearing people's stories of how they got into or out of whatever it is that they're either in or out of anymore.
Heck yeah, man.
All right. Thank you for joining us here inside the Pull Bag. If you'd like to get in contact with us or leave feedback for the show, there are several ways to do so. Visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can listen to and comment on all of our content. Send us email to feedback@geekcastradio.com. Mr. Dave McElvany, I know you sent John M. Wilson and I an email. I will read that in a future episode, since it was feedback for us on John's 1 year, 1,000 comics episode we did last time. I don't know how he finds the time to read 1,000 comics in an entire year.
So many comic books. Yeah. My goodness.
Yeah, he's a machine. You can check us out on all the podcasting clients you choose to use, Apple, Google Podcasts. Leave us reviews, please, on those, Spotify, and any other ones you choose to use. We are on X because, unfortunately, that's what it's called now. I actually am starting to call it Twix. Somebody said it was Twix the other day. I'm like, oh, okay, that works. At Geekcast Radio for the network, at the Pullbag for the show. I am at TFG and Mike. Are you still on the old Twitter there, sir?
Yeah, I am. DE_RAY1977.
There you go. Become a fan on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/Geekcast Radio Network. You can also check out the Pullbag over there as well as the Long Box Crusade. Join us next time when we will be probably doing another Origins episode, or it might be Superman Unchained, which is the Scott Snyder Superman run. We've done so many of Snyder's Batman run over the years, I figured, hey, why not try reading his Superman run? So that's going to be coming up soon. I do know the show will probably be going on a hiatus after episode 542 because Joe Reed and I have to get to the point of being able to record 543 and 544, which is IDW's TMNT Reborn Volumes 3 and 4. The banner arts for those are already done, so I'm not not using the banner arts for those episodes. For now, I am TFG and Mike with
Delvin Williams.
As always, make your great escape into comics, and we will catch you next time.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pullbag, the GCRN's first comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate and leave a review for the show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Become a fan of us on Facebook, facebook.com/thepullbag. Send us an email, feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at thepullbag and at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.
Who was that exotic lady?
Oh, her? Now she's my ride. It's been great meeting you. Take care of yourself.
You too, Spider-Man. Farewell and good luck. Wow, I wonder how I'm supposed to get down from here. I suppose I could wait for the Fantastic Four to drop by and give me a lift.
That's Stan Lee. He's quite a guy.
I think he's truly special.
Well, Madam Webb, where to now?
Face front, true believer. We are going to find the real Mary Jane Watson.
What?
It is